Welcome everybody, my name's Brant Buckley, and this is the Intro to Python Final Project from the College of Dupage. Basically, I wanted to give you guys an overview of the project before stepping into the source code. So, I'm a musician, I give music lessons, and this is a picture of the Muddy Waters guitar here. I thought that would be pretty fitting. So, basically what I created in Python is a music graphical user interface. So, the user can input a major scale, and there are going to be two pieces of data that are output, the major scale and the major scale chords. Also, the user can input a relative minor scale, and the relative minor scale and the relative minor scale chords are output. So basically the reason I created this, because when you're first learning music or you're first learning an instrument, it's difficult to memorize all of this stuff. There's 12 keys in music. So that makes for a lot of memorization, and this program solves that. So you're going to have to memorize the major scales. There's 12 of them, 12 of the minor scales, then also the major scale chords and the minor scale chords. So it's a lot of stuff there. So let's jump right into the source code here. Let's just run the program here. Okay, so I can enter a major scale here. Let's put in C major. Let's put in the relative minor scale as C. We can display that. So there's four pieces of data here: the major scale chords, minor scale chords. So let's talk about this graphical user interface. There's a bunch of things going on here. So I have a menu bar here. On my Windows computer, the bar did appear here, but on Mac it's up here. So I can save the scales to a .txt file, or I can exit. There's also labels here: enter a major scale, enter a relative minor scale, text boxes. There's buttons, so I click display before I can clear it. Exit would basically exit the program. I'm not going to do that now. There's also a horizontal scroll bar, and there's radio buttons to change the text. So this basically describes the music GUI here. So let's get into the program. Okay, so the biggest thing is the class. I'm going to go to that in a second. You can see anything related to a tkinter import is basically in relationship to the graphical user interface. This here, from scale theory, import scale theory, is my class. That's what's importing it into this .py file. So let's go to the class. So in the class, there's four attributes. This is like the skeleton of the program that's basically running it, so I can create objects. Basically, the objects I'm creating are the scales. So I'm creating 12 major scales, 12 major chords, 12 relative minor scales, 12 relative minor chords. And you can see that this data is also private here with the 2 underscores. I have property decorators, my getters and setters. And basically, I have 4 methods here. Whoops. I'm only using 2. I kept 2 other ones in if I want to update the program or make it differently, but basically the majors method or function is returning 2 pieces of data: the major scale and the major chords. The minors, again, is sending out 2 pieces of data: the relative minor scale, the relative minor chords. And again, there's a string method here, basically, that returns the object state. So let's go back to the main program here. And if you can see this, line 23 to about 128 is dedicated to building the GUI here. So this is all of the code for building the buttons, the labels, the horizontal scroll bar, the menu, the font, and all of that stuff. And I'm not going to focus on that here. One important thing here is this self.__scale list. This is how the data is saved in an empty list, so then it can be sent to a file. So when a user wants to save what is the output data, it can go to a file. So it's, in this case, it's a .txt file, and I'll explain that in a little bit. It's in another function. So let's come all the way down here to the display function. So this is basically, these are the 12 objects. These are created from the class. Basically here there are 4 pieces of data: the major scale chords. Right here you can see the relative minor scale and the relative minor scale chords. So this holds the data for when the user basically wants to input something. This is the beginnings of how it is output in the list box. Okay, so let's keep going through this. Okay, some important things here, some exception handling. This is what the user is entering. So what we did, from what you saw, the user, which is me in this case, entered C major. So what is returned is this thing called C major dot majors. If we go back here, this is what it's returning, 2 pieces of data. That's why there were 2 pieces of data in the output. This top line of code is how it is saved in this this list up here. If we go all the way up here. Yeah, okay, so it gets a little bit tricky the more code you have to go back and forth. So what this try except statement does is, if you're not entering anything that's C, G, D, A, blah, blah, anything of the 12 keys, it's just basically a capital letter. There's going to be an error. So let's run that so you can see that. That's pretty important. So let's say I put, instead of capital C, I just put C. Let's display that. Use a capital letter, C or C sharp. That's just for the sharp keys or the flat keys. So that's letting the user know how to input the data. So that's pretty important. Also, as you can see, there's some selection logic here with the if and else if statements. So if the user enters C, display this. If they enter this, display this. That's the logic behind that code. The clear function basically allows me to clear all of the data from the GUI. So if I push clear, everything's clear. There's nothing in the GUI. Saving the file, this is pretty much the last function here. This file name, this basically allows the user to, as you click Save As, you can save it to a file. You can save it to the desktop. You can choose your own file name, and it's a .txt file. This right here, here's another important part. This is basically saving it to the list. So what we have here is some repetition logic with the for statement, for scale, in self. So this is what I was pointing out earlier. This is that empty list. This is how all of that data is saved then into a file. So basically, I have a file here, if I can find it. Here we go. I already saved it as brant.txt. Hard to see, but here's all the data entered, stored into a file. So this basically describes the whole final project. I hope you liked it. I'm also going to play a little music for you on the guitar after this. I know the video is probably a little bit longer than most would like, so you can kind of see this in action, so it's applied musically. And that covers it. Thank you. Okay, here's the fun part. Here we go. C major. Okay, the C major chord. C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, we'll bring up here, and back to C. Okay, so the relative minor of C is A minor. Okay, the chords to that, A minor, B diminished, C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, we'll bring A minor all the way up here. That covers it.